Hello everyone, welcome to the Africam show. I'm so excited to be here with all of you and the wonderful animals across our different cams in Africa. We're starting off here at Olifants River and we've got some baboons, some Katmai baboons to be precise. It's me, Shala, by the way, and I'm always very pleased to spend this time with you all. And we have 45 minutes together where we get to go through all the cams, and of course we're live and interactive, so that means that you can ask any questions and send through any comments that you like. You can tell me how you're enjoying the Africam show. This time round I have something more interesting. Instead of nothing to drink, I have a cup of tea. Okay, it sounded more interesting in my head. I'm sure you all are enjoying the Africam show a little bit more interestingly than I am. Bridget McKenney, you say hi Trishala. Zygote, you say hello Trishala. Namaste, and namaste to you too, Zygote. Kauru, you say hi Trishala. Hi Kauru. And I'm sure more will come through as we keep going. I think it's quite cool that we get to start with some baboons. I'm seeing quite a few swollen backsides at the moment. Now this is a good thing. So this means that at least if we can, how do I describe this? So there's a female that's standing kind of in the pathway towards the end, and you can see that her bottom is really swollen, very bulbous, and that's how it looks. Oh, and she's being very flirty. Yes, she is. Everyone who walks past, she's kind of showing off her behind. Now, baboons of all different varieties, they have that kind of bare skin. Oh, I just wanted to let that moment pass. Whoa, that's really interesting. So if you recall the pair that went past, that was the pair that was actually causing this ruckus at the moment, it was a youngster and an adult. So to me, this sounds, if you heard, there was quite a loud bark, and that would be coming from the adult, but these kind of lighter, high-pitched squeals and screeches, that's coming from the youngster. Now, baboons are very playful. They'll play with each other. Adults play with the other adults. They form friendships, and they can play quite roughly with the youngsters as well. That looked to me like the youngster wanted to play and perhaps irritated the adult a little bit, and then we heard that commotion. And everybody else stopped to have a look as well. But we were focusing on that female that's still standing in that same spot, just where the shadow ends, the shadow of these trees end, and everyone's walking through that path. And as adults walk through, she keeps pointing her behind towards them to kind of get them to have a look and see that she's actually an estrus. That's a really important visual cue, something that us humans don't really have. There's no visual cue to show that we're ovulating, which is another way to say that we're able to fall pregnant, which is the time that you should be mating if you want to fall pregnant. But many animals do have visual cues, and baboons are one of those that have quite a striking one, and then that whole bare patch of skin gets nice and swollen. Now for comparison, unfortunately that female has now walked out of our frame here, but very close to us we have another female and her little baby just on the left here, very close to the camera. In fact, you can kind of you can see the kind of like the scaffolding or parts of where the camera is mounted. You can see that man-made object. If she turns around, you'll see that her behind looks very flat. not swollen at all. And that makes sense because she's already got a very small baby, and she would be far from estrus at this point. Ooh, the one that's walked towards us also has a nice swollen bottom. So you're probably going to see a bit of mating if you keep watching this camera. I mean, it's also quite nice for us because we can pick up on those visual cues because we're not very in tune with the hormone cycles of other animals. But when there's a visual cue, it can be really helpful in being able to predict behavior and also to kind of figure out what to look forward to. A few more hellos have come in. Andy, you say good afternoon. Seems to be a bit slow on the cams. Maybe maybe we do some nighttime shows. Oh, Andy, that would be very cool, wouldn't it? But I know you say just kidding because, yeah, Trishala has other things she'd like to do in the evening. Jokes. Trishala is very comfortable with her inner grandma who likes to spend the evenings reading her Agatha Christie, crocheting, and drinking tea. I like watching the cams at night too, though. Rolling Trouble, you say hello all from a very wet Washington. Hello, Rolling Trouble. Thank you for joining us. April Owl, you say hello from sunny Connecticut. You're so glad to be here. Well, we are very glad for you to be here. Bob from Kalamazoo, you say hello, Trishala. Hello, Bob. Why am I not hearing what everybody has to drink? I've shared with you that I have a cup of green tea. That's the most exciting drink share I've ever had on this show. Ooh, Mindy Tillapau, hello. You'd like to know, any thoughts on why baboons have an elongated face like dogs? That's an interesting question. I think it's a bit of an unanswerable one, but it's a nice thought. It's something that's really nice to provoke kind of critical thinking. Baboons are often described as dog-faced, but when it comes to, especially across mammals, many things are a result of changes in structures that already exist. So very rarely do groups of animals, or close-knit groups of animals, just develop new features. Not even close groups, even broad groups like mammals. Very rarely do they just develop extra features for a particular purpose. Instead, what's often, and it makes sense, what's often done is that existing features get modified. Now with baboons and having this slanted, what's called a dog-like face, I think it's a result. I mean, if we look at the face of herbivores, and I must say here that I'm speculating because it's such a broad thing and it's hard to describe where things come from when it comes to these the appearance of things as opposed to the function of things, because when there's a function it's really easy to kind of figure out what it's for, but when it's just appearance it can be a lot more difficult. But if we think about herbivores, almost all of them have a longish face in some capacity. But with baboons, other monkeys, primates, their eyes are not on the sides of their heads. And so the movement of the eyes to the front to give binocular vision, to give extra depth perception to these animals, I think that's kind of what causes the dog-like face. Long muzzle to me indicates that they spend time putting their faces into things, because animals that have long muzzles, like giraffes, like dogs, they spend a lot of time putting their nose into things so they can investigate it or they can reach it without any damage, or at least minimizing damage to the eye area, which is obviously a lot more sensitive. So it's a really interesting thing to think about, but I wouldn't be able to say definitely why they have this, what's often described as a dog-like face. Amber Co, you say happy Tuesday, thank you, and thank you to me, and thank you to all that brings the show to us. You look forward to it every week. Oh, that makes me feel very nice. Jan Powers, I haven't heard your name in a while. You say a little late, but you made it. We're off to Mabula now, having a look at a giraffe that we just spoke about. You say a little late, but you made it. You're happy to hear my voice, and you always learn so much. I'm thankful that you're here. Casper's third ghost. Ooh, yes, we have some drink orders coming in. You say good morning from Milwaukee, late with a hot coffee. Nice. Bridget McKinney. Ooh, thank you. Bridget McKinney, you say lemon water. I like it. I like it very much. And April Owl, cherry iced tea. You always have interesting iced teas, April Owl. And our giraffe has moved off. Hopefully it comes back, but we're off to Stony Point for a little bit. Having a look at the Dusty family, or probably several families that are now hanging out at the rocks here. Just seeing for adults. They always look sleepy to me. Sleepy and somewhat uninterested in the things that are going on around them. Oh, here we have some movement. Now they're just catching the last bit of sun, or at least the last bit of strong sun, the sun that can actually warm you up nicely. Here in the Western Cape, I should be more specific, here close to Cape Town, it gets chilly very quickly once the sun starts to go down. And for small animals like this, it's going to be really important that they are able to collect as much of that heat as possible before they turn in themselves. If you have a look at their positioning, they're facing, or they're laterally facing the sunlight. That means they are maximizing the amount of surface area on their body that can actually be touched by the rays of sun and actually be warmed up. Now here at Stony Point, if you've not ever been, it's very chilly and very windy. I can recall one day where I did not wear a jacket at Stony Point. One day. The wind absolutely batters you here. And it's quite a chilly wind. So if it wasn't windy, it would probably be a lot warmer, but it is windy. In fact, you can even see the fur of these dussies starting to lift in the wind. It is not the most still day here in Cape Town, but I shouldn't complain because normally we are gifted with about 3 days a year where it is warm and not windy. But recently we've had about 7 in a row, so I'm going to just be appreciative of that fact. And now some clouds have come over the sunlight. You can see that they're no longer getting those nice rays on them. At least they get to chill. Anyway, we're back at Olifants River now with our baboons. There was just so much happening there when we started here. So much happening. At one point I was like, oh, where do I start? I'm talking about the Easter cycles, but then we had that whole commotion, and I kind of lost what I wanted to tell you, but I remember now. So when we are out in the bush as guides, we are often using other animals to give us clues about what's happening in the bush. And alarm calls are the most obvious ones. Also, just watching behaviors of animals can give you clues about what's going on. But alarm calls, especially reliable alarm calls, are something that we use a lot. And when it comes to baboons, Um, their alarm call, I'm going to follow up on that alarm call every single time. And the first thing I want to do is I want to find, I mean, if I can't immediately see what they're alarming at, I'm going to find which animal or where those animals are. Like if I can hear a kudu alarm calling, I want to find that kudu so I can see what direction they're looking in. And the same goes for baboons. If you hear a baboon alarm calling, you race there and then you try to find that baboon so you know where it's looking out to. And with baboons, because they perch themselves on the tops of trees, they have quite a long range of vision. So sometimes you really have to look out for where they're looking to be successful in finding the predator that you need. But the reason I'm bringing that up now is because you heard that baboon barking, and what is essentially sounds just like an alarm call. But they also argue a lot, especially at dawn and dusk. They can make such a noise just from arguing between them. So it's always important to also, always important to follow up. But if you get here and you see that there's, a bit of a fight going on, then probably know it's not a predator that they're alarming at. Now, isn't this just cute? The individual that's doing the grooming looks very into it. That's how you need your therapist to be. They can't be, half into it. They've got to be totally into the process. And I applaud this particular individual for how enthusiastically it is picking pests off the bottom of this other baboon. Allo-grooming is something that happens across quite a few different species, and it's particularly important with baboons as a way to form friendships, a way to curry favor with other individuals. And friendships are really important in baboon society. They're socially very complex. They also form alliances, and those allow them to, it's really interesting because they don't just form alliances based on what they can get at that moment, like being friendly with somebody because you have this awful big tick on your neck and you can't reach it. But they seem to have foresight in terms of who they form alliances with and friendships with. For example, high-ranking females that have recently had offspring with the alpha male, for example, other males will try to be friendly with her in an attempt to kind of soften his friendship with the alpha male, which is always going to be a bit of a problem because the alpha male's position is constantly being challenged by other males around. And then the same for the other way. If females have lots of male friendships, so they curry favor with males, then it offers protection for her young in the future. If for some reason the alpha male, or if the alpha male gets ousted and somebody else comes in, having male friendships can help her protect her youngsters, even if they're not really born yet. And it also just serves a bonding purpose. Oh, Mindy, you'd like to know, does a lower-ranked individual always groom a higher-ranked individual? And will a higher-ranked individual ever groom a lower-ranking individual? Just because of the benefits, the friendship benefits of grooming, it tends to be that lower-ranked individuals groom higher-ranked individuals just because they have more to gain from it. But that doesn't mean that higher-ranked individuals won't groom lower-ranked individuals. There we go. Very, very swollen section there. And that individual that just walked off, you can see that that individual had very flat skin in her bottom. Now we are at Old Donyo, and we are looking at, looks like an inflorescence of some kind of grass. How I wish that my knowledge of East African grasses was sufficient to tell you what this is. They are not. Oh, thank you, Gerlinda. You say it could be a Cyperus alatus. Very nice. That's one for me to remember. We looks like we have some little bugs in there too. So, so beautiful. I'm going to have a sip of my tea, everyone. If you don't hear me for 2 seconds. Oh, don't you love it when your tea is suddenly that perfect temperature? That's my tea right now. I've been totally in awe of the really bright green around the El Donyo waterhole at the moment. I think it's also about the way that the light comes in and the position of the camera. But the green is very, very, very vibrant. And gentle sways, just as I was about to say gentle sways, it got stuck. Apologies for that. But there's a lot of new growth, new grass growth in the area, which I think is a great indicator of the health, but also the abundance in the ecosystem. This is just a patch that we're seeing, but across the board, there's going to be, it indicates that there's lots of great grass all over the place. Maybe we could zoom out a little and have a look at the waterhole. That would be fantastic. I feel I am a little slow today, everybody. I had to take an antihistamine in the middle of the day. I do not recommend that. It's, or at least for me, I can't take antihistamines without half falling asleep. There we go. There we go. We're back at Mabula now, and we've got a Blacksmith lapwing. I wonder if there are some eggs under there. Oh, Blacksmith lapwings tend to lay their eggs in the dry season. But if those are not successful, then they will continue to lay clutches until there is a successful clutch. I mean, sometimes they're not successful, and that's okay too, but they will continue. And so if you see Blacksmith lapwings sitting on some eggs at this time of the year, it's not really that unusual. It just tells me that their clutch, when they initially started to lay eggs, probably didn't survive. Unfortunately for them, it seems to be quite a lot. And if you think about when they lay eggs and how they nest, it's not surprising that they lose quite a few of their clutches before they're successful. Now she could very well, or he could very well be sitting on a nest, but I'm hoping maybe it gets up and then we can actually see for ourselves. Now, something that we don't often get to see, mostly because of light, but here we kind of can see quite nicely, well, I guess half nicely, is that Blacksmith lapwings have a red eye. And most of the time when you see them, it probably looks like they have a black eye, or it's not noticeable. but this is really nice and close, pretty clear, and we can actually see the red of the eye. What is this? Kirst says that they are sitting on eggs. Lovely. Oh, I can't wait to see those little fur balls. Blacksmith lapwing chicks, I suppose like all ground bird chicks, kind of look like a cotton ball with two toothpicks sticking out the bottom. Very wobbly. They're able to move around very quickly, pretty much soon after they hatch, almost immediately after they hatch. They're ground nesting birds, so that means that it's really important that they are able to move as soon as they can, because they need to avoid danger, and they don't have the safety of a traditional nest. Blacksmith lapwings, like many birds actually, ground nesting birds to be specific, just have a simple scrape in the ground. What that literally means is they will, just with their legs, scrape a little to create somewhat of a depression. Sometimes that depression is negligible, and then lay their eggs in them. So there's no safety for youngsters to return to or retreat to. There's that red eye. Oh, that was so cool. And so those youngsters move around very, very, very quickly and follow their parents. Oh, Kauru, you say yesterday the lapwings at Mabula, which I'm assuming are these lapwings. There could be other lapwing couples around, though they tend to be very territorial. You say they went after a snake. It had come near their nest. Ooh, that is so cool. I hope I'll get to see that clip. No doubt I will. Do we know what snake it was? That's very, very interesting. Oh, sorry, I can't get over this red eye. You really don't get to see it this clearly and this obviously very often. Hopefully, oh, maybe not hopefully. I would like to see when this individual gets up so we can see the eggs, but it's probably best for her if she just stays put and protects her eggs. How about we head back over to Old Donyo and see what kind of bird life is up there. Most reliable birds on safari, blacksmith lapwings, and doves. Oh yes, the light is working for you, dear ring-necked dove. It really is. They are very beautiful birds, even though they are quite common. Not that that means anything, but they tend to be overlooked. But they have a really beautiful, soft, purpley brown gray tinge to certain parts of them. I mean, my favorite is the slightly pink tinge to some of the feathers. Now, I didn't really notice much of their colors until I painted one of them. And when you paint something, especially something like a bird, it really makes you look at the colors. And you think, oh, well, that's not just plain gray. There's a bit of something else in it. There's a hint of something else. This dove on the right was doing something quite interesting, lifting its head up and down. Now, if you've ever kept birds or anything like that, you've probably noticed that kind of behavior as well, moving the head up and down, or even just side to side. And that's a way for many animals to better gauge what it is they're looking at. So if you know, when dogs kind of cock their heads to the side as you're speaking, that's a way for them to better understand or to try and figure out what you mean. Not as in trying to understand your language, but clearly you're speaking right at them, and so they need to be picking up something, and the way for them to figure out better what your face is doing is for them to move their heads from side to side. And many animals do that. You see it very often in animals that have their eyes placed in this way, on the sides of their heads. Now, when they move their heads from side to side or up or down, it allows them to get a better understanding of what they're looking at, because their depth perception is very limited. You might see owls do it a lot as well, and owls don't have the depth perception problem because they have forward-facing eyes, but they still do it. Mindy, that's a really interesting question. So we were talking about the eye color of the blacksmith lapwing earlier, and I was saying that they've got a really red eye, and then sorry, I just read something and I got confused. We'll get there. They've got a really red eye, and so do loons, which Mindy is asking about. She's talking about the loons in the US having red eyes, and they do. Because I remember having a kid's book when I was very little. It was like you know, the type of book that has those really thick board pages, like cardboard pages. And there were loons in them, and I remember the red eyes of the loons. So you just wanted to know, is there a reason for the red eyes? So I did a deep dive on this. Maybe it deserves a second deep dive. The deep dive I did was about 4 years ago. It was around, I think it was like a year into guiding, and I was trying to figure out why is it that there's such variation in eye color with birds. We get birds with yellow eyes, we get birds with red eyes, with variations of like brown. So there's lots of differences in their eye color, and sometimes even within the same species. You get, for example, saddle-billed storks where the male has a red eye, female has a yellow eye, and it's, oh, and she's gone. There we go. We can see the eggs. So cool. Now you can see that they're actually very well camouflaged here. And that's really important, because those lapwings have to make sure that, given that they nest in an open area, that they have some form of protection. And cryptic coloration is a great one. Sorry, Mindy, I cut you off there, but thank you, Kurt. She didn't want me to miss them, and I didn't want to miss them either. It's lovely to see the eggs exposed. So Mindy, I did go on a deep dive regarding eye coloration, and what I found was pretty much zilch. But you have a good way of reminding me to do secondary deep dives years later. So I'm going to go and have a look again. Birds have excellent vision. They tend to have 4 color cones. A lot of them, I mean, apart from the 4 color cones, which means that they can also see into the UV spectrum of light, they also have a few adaptations in their eyes that allow them to see better, depending on the bird. You know, the average dove perhaps doesn't need 2 fovea in its eye because it's not a predatory bird, but they have quite a few adaptations. So vision is really important for birds. And so I wonder if the color of the eye, just thinking about the optics of it, whether the color of the eye affects certain type of light. That was the angle I was going for when I did the deep dive several years ago, but it appears that that's not what it is. Most likely, given that sexual selection drives so much when it comes to the colors in birds, it's likely that the color of the eye also is or has been driven by sexual selection. But I am going to deep dive again. flight to the world of animals. You say hello, hello to you. I've not heard your name before. Welcome to the Africam community. And thank you for sending through a little hello. And we have a foot coming in. There we go. Mama's back. A little neat tuck, pushing them closer together. And down it goes again. So sweet. All right, let's head over to Olifants River. There was a giraffe. Am I being blind? I'm not able to see this giraffe. Something walking in the distance that it looks like an Egyptian goose. Never mind. Isn't? I'm looking kind of on the left. No, it's some kind of antelope. I can't see what exactly here. We'll have a closer look in a moment. Oh, it is beautiful here at Olifants River. Very dense. Just having a little pan across. Well, there we go. Hello, giraffe. I mean, to be fair, in that particular stance, it was hard to tell it was a giraffe. It looks so peaceful here. Can you imagine sitting here with a picnic basket, watching the animals come through? Maybe perching yourself up in a nice tree. That's what I would do, I think. Stay out of everyone's way, up in a nice tree. Looks like it's having a drink in that little puddle, if I'm assuming there's a little puddle there. Alright, off we go. We're at Rosie's. And we've got some warthogs. Very chilled warties. I think on our cameras, obviously it's very nice to see those unique sightings that we're not really going to see if we're out on game drive. Things like striped hyenas, I mean, in southern Africa you're not going to see that anyway. So those are always cool sightings, and it's one of the gifts that, or one of the bigger gifts that the cameras give us. But for me, the general sighting, something that you do see out in game drive quite regularly, but you just don't get a good sighting of it, warthogs. So for me, seeing warthogs on the cameras is really special. They're not reacting to anything. You're viewing them from afar. Warthogs are very reactive. These individuals look a little young. They don't have particularly large tusks. And they're not very bulky. This would be the exact type of individual that would scurry away very quickly if our game drive vehicle came through. But you can see that they're pretty relaxed. Now this looks like it's two males, maybe a small bachelor group. When the one had its side to us, you could see the little penis sheath very clearly. Just looks like a bump on their belly. So normally the belly would be smooth, and there's a little bump. That's how you can see the penis sheath. Oh yes, give us a roll around. Another obvious way, particularly for big males, is that their testicles tend to be quite huge. And that's very obvious to see. Oh, there we go. the sound? You can see, even though there aren't any game drive vehicles around, and at least to us it looks like there aren't any potential threats around, they're still pretty vigilant. Oh yeah. Just dig the mud for no reason there. Always puts a smile on my face to watch warthogs. Got some oxpeckers on them as well. I just heard a red-crested corehorn in the background. What a peaceful little visit to Rosie's pan. Speaking of Rosie's, has anybody seen the main character here, Mr. Monty? I can't wait for Monty to show up again. If you're unsure who we're talking about, it's Monty Python, the semi-resident Python at Rosie's Pan. And off they go. Shall we have a quick look at the pan itself? Oh, Kirst says no. Monty has not... No, she didn't say no to me looking at the pan. She said no, Monty has not been seen yet. So sad. It is sad. But I'm sure we will keep on looking, us and the zoomies, of course, and all of you. But we're back here at Olifants River now with our nervous-looking giraffe. They always look nervous. It's not their fault. It's all that height. You know, if you have less to look at, there's less to worry about. But so much to look at, I'm sure it makes them more nervous. They tend to be, in my opinion, more nervous than other animals at waterholes. And not only for that reason, obviously, in terms of their anatomy and their physiology, drinking is significantly more of a vulnerable procedure than it is for most other animals. Now, from the beginning of the day, I have been feeling very elephanty, and I've been wanting to see elephants. And I'm very happy because here we go. We're at Kwamaratan now, and we have a nice, very thick elephant bull here, enjoying himself a little bit of a spa day. I love elephants so much. Gave his eye an old rub there. Oh no, old boy, you're already done in the water. Come back and give us another splash before we have to say goodbye. Got a white-faced whistling duck in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen as well. At Kwamaratan, many a time I've seen the big elephant bulls come in here and really give it a go, rolling around in the mud and the water, splashing about, dunking their whole bodies in. As much as I would love for this guy to do it, it seems like he's had his full at the waterhole and he's moving off. Anyway, much like him, I too am going to move off. It was a pleasure to have you all on board, but it is time to say goodbye. And I will see you all on Thursday. And Mindy, I will remember to do another deep dive on eye colors. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining. See you again soon. Bye for now.